On the 2nd of October 1979, a German climber named Hannelore Schmatz stood on the summit of Mount Everest. She had climbed the south side from Nepal on an expedition led by her husband. On the same day, on the same climb, he became the oldest person to have reached the top of the mountain. She never came down, neither did the American climbing beside her, and 5 years later, 2 more men died on the same slope, doing nothing more dangerous than trying to bring her home. 4 people, from one decision, made at the end of one long day. This is what that decision was. Start with where they were. The summit of Everest is 8,849 meters. The camp they had left that morning was far below. Between the two lies the part of the mountain that climbers call the death zone, and the name is not dramatic license. Above roughly 8,000 meters, there is about a third of the oxygen there is at sea level. The body does not acclimatize, it does not recover, it consumes itself slowly for as long as you stay. Everything you do up there, every step, every decision, every judgment about how tired you are, you do with a brain that is being starved. They summited late, that is the first thing. By the time Hannelore Schmatz and the American guide Ray Genet started down, the afternoon was going. It is worth knowing who Genet was, because it changes how you read what happened next. Swiss by birth, American by choice, he was known in Alaska simply as Pirate. In 1967, he was part of the first team ever to climb Denali in winter, an ascent that has passed into mountaineering legend for what it cost the men who made it. He became the first guide working on that mountain, and by the end, he had stood on its summit 25 times. This was not a tourist. This was a man who had spent his working life at altitude and in cold, and who had survived conditions that killed other people. Schmatz was experienced too, and fit, and had just done the hardest thing in mountaineering. Both of them were finished. Somewhere around 8,300 meters, still well above the camp, they stopped. The plan, as far as there was one, was to sit out the night where they were and go down in the morning. To bivouac. No tent that could hold against that wind, no stove, no shelter. Just the two of them and whatever they were wearing, on open ground in the death zone, in October, in the dark. The Sherpas with them argued against it. This is the part of the story that people get wrong when they retell it. It is easy, sitting at sea level, to call this a stupid decision. It was not stupidity. It was exhaustion, at an altitude where exhaustion stops being a feeling and becomes a physical inability to continue, and where the same lack of oxygen that is emptying your legs is also making the decision for you. The mountain does not just tire you out, it takes away the equipment you would use to judge how tired you are. They stopped. The Sherpas stayed with them. Ray Genet died during the night, hypothermia. One of the most capable high-altitude guides alive, and the cold simply took him, sitting still on a slope in the dark. Hannelore Schmatz lived until the following day. Sungdare, one of the Sherpas who stayed, was with her at the end. By one account, she was breathing from his oxygen bottle. Not hers. His. He had given it to her and stayed on the slope without it. According to him, her last words were a request for water. That detail is worth stopping on because it is not a sentimental one. At that altitude, you lose water faster than you notice. Through your lungs, in every breath, in air so cold and dry it takes moisture out of you with each cycle. Dehydration thickens the blood and accelerates everything else that is going wrong. Thirst at 8,300 meters is not a symptom. It is the process. She asked for water and there was none, and she died on the slope a few hundred meters above the camp she had been trying to reach. Now the part that almost never gets told. Sungdare had stayed with her. He had stayed through the night and into the next day, at an altitude where staying still is the most dangerous thing you can do. He came down alive. He lost most of his fingers and most of his toes to frostbite. That is the third casualty of that night, and he survived it. And here is what he did afterwards, which is the part of this story that deserves to outlive the rest of it. He kept climbing. On those hands, with those feet, he went back up Everest 4 more times. On the 10th of May 1988, on a joint Chinese, Japanese and Nepalese expedition, Sungdare stood on the summit for the 5th time. He was the first human being ever to do it 5 times. The record that opens every list of great Sherpa climbers begins with a man who earned his injuries by refusing to leave a dying client alone at 8,300 meters. He did not have long with it. Sungdare drowned in a river below his village of Pangboch in 1989, at 33. Elizabeth Hawley, who chronicled Himalayan climbing for half a century, recorded that he had been drinking heavily in the years before. Whatever else that night on the mountain took, it did not finish with him in 1979. Her body stayed where it was. Everest does not give its dead back. Bringing a body down from above 8,000 meters is not a matter of will or of respect or of how much anyone is willing to pay. It is a technical operation carried out in the death zone with a load that weighs what a person weighs, that cannot hold on, cannot shift its balance, cannot help. A frozen body does not fold. It has to be moved across ground where a healthy climber, carrying nothing, is already at the edge of what a human being can do, and every hour spent on the attempt is another hour in which the rescuers' own bodies are eating themselves. So most of the time it is not attempted. The dead stay where they fell and the route goes past them, and everyone who walks it knows that this is the arrangement they have accepted. For 5 years, that is what happened. She sat where she had stopped, above the camp in view of the path, and climbers went by. Then, in October 1984, a Nepalese police expedition decided to bring her down. On the 24th of October, at around 8,400 meters, 2 of them fell. Inspector Yogendra Bahadur Thapa, aged 36. His guide Ang Dorji, aged 35. Both were killed. They had gone up to recover the body of a woman who had died 5 years earlier, and the mountain took them for it. So the arithmetic of that one night is this. 2 people stopped to rest at 8,300 meters in 1979. Both died. A Sherpa who stayed with them came home without his fingers. And 2 men who went up to correct the situation died on the same slope in 1984. 4 dead, 1 decision. There is a postscript. Hannelore Schmatz did not stay on the mountain forever. At some point, the wind that runs across that face, a wind that moves anything not anchored, shifted her and took her over the edge, in the direction of the Kangshung face. By the late 2000s, she was no longer on the route. The mountain that would not give her back eventually put her somewhere nobody goes. What is left is the record, and the record is unusually clear about the sequence. Late summit, exhaustion, a choice to stop where stopping is fatal. Sherpas who argued and then stayed anyway. A night, a morning, a request for water, and a 5-year echo in which 2 men who never knew her went up to bring her down, and did not come back either. Everest has a way of making a single decision keep costing.